snow, relentless, unforgiving, it blanketed everything, transforming the quaint town of Evergreen Pines into a scene from a forgotten winter's tale. Streets disappeared beneath a pristine white veil. Rooftops groaned under the weight of the accumulating snowdrifts. A piercing wind howled through the skeletal trees, their branches heavy with ice, their shadows dancing like phantoms against the swirling snow. The air, thick with falling flakes, seemed to muffle all sound save for the occasional crack of ice or the mournful sigh of the wind. The usual bustle of life had ground to a halt, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by the relentless whisper of the snow. The world outside had shrunk to a small, isolated pocket of existence. Daniel, bundled in layers against the biting cold, fought his way through the blinding snowstorm. His breath formed frosty plumes in the frigid air. He clutched a tattered map, its edges frayed and damp, struggling to get his bearings in the near whiteout conditions. He had been driving for hours, hoping to reach Evergreen Pines before the storm hit, but the weather had other plans. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the swirling snow, ghostly and indistinct at first. Then, as if materializing from the storm itself, a woman came into focus. Her face, framed by a woolen hat, was etched with worry. Her gloved hands clutched a small leather-bound book held tightly against her chest. Their eyes met, a brief flicker of surprise in the midst of the swirling chaos. For a moment, the storm seemed to fade, the world shrinking to encompass only the two of them, two strangers brought together by chance in the heart of a raging blizzard. "Lost?" Daniel asked, his voice barely audible above the wind's roar. The woman nodded, her eyes mirroring his own anxiety. "The roads are treacherous. It's not safe to be out here alone." He gestured towards a dimly lit storefront across the street, its windows glowing with a warm, inviting light. "Come on, let's get out of this storm." The woman hesitated for a moment, then, as if acknowledging the futility of arguing with the elements, nodded again. Together, they battled their way across the street, their shoulders brushing, a spark of warmth in the midst of the icy blizzard. The shop, a charming bookstore with shelves overflowing with novels and the comforting aroma of old paper and wood smoke, offered sanctuary from the storm's fury. A fire crackled merrily in a stone fireplace, casting dancing shadows across the walls lined with books. They huddled near the warmth, their gazes meeting briefly before darting away, a shared sense of relief tinged with the awkwardness of strangers thrown together by circumstance. "I'm Daniel," he said, extending a hand towards her. "Anna," she replied, her gloved fingers meeting his in a firm handshake. The ice had been broken. As the hours crawled by and the storm raged on outside, they talked, hesitantly at first, then with growing ease. They shared stories of their lives, their dreams, their fears, their voices, a low murmur against the backdrop of the howling wind. Daniel learned that Anna was a writer, drawn to Evergreen Pines by the promise of solitude and inspiration. She, in turn, discovered that he was a photographer, captivated by the town's stark beauty and the way the light played across the snow-covered landscape. With each shared story, each stolen glance, the chasm between them seemed to shrink, replaced by a growing sense of connection. The storm showed no signs of abating. Days turned into nights, the outside world nothing but a swirling white void. They were forced to share the small apartment above the bookstore, their lives intertwined in the most unexpected of ways. One evening, as they huddled by the fire, the conversation turned to family history. Anna spoke of her grandmother, a woman who believed in fate and the interconnectedness of all things. She described a worn, leather-bound book of fairy tales that had been passed down through generations, each story a testament to the enduring power of love. Daniel listened, mesmerized, a strange familiarity tugging at the edges of his memory. He reached into his bag, his fingers closing around a small, worn book. A book of fairy tales identical to the one Anna had described. It had belonged to his grandfather, a man he had never met, but whose stories had filled his childhood. Silence descended upon the room, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the pounding of their hearts. Their eyes met, no longer strangers, but two souls recognizing something profound. Amidst the raging blizzard, something shifted between them. Daniel traced the delicate curve of Anna's cheek. They found solace, comfort, and the promise of love in each other's arms.